Hello, and welcome to a special set of Cromwellian conversations for this time of year, as of course it's Halloween. And the time of year that's commonly associated with witches and wizards, ghost schools and goblins, and where in normal times people, of course, go out and celebrate with all sorts of parties and festivities. What I'm going to do over 3 videos is tell you some real life stories of witchcraft that are supposedly centered here in the town of Huntingdon. Now, Huntingdon, of course, today is a quiet market town, best known, of course, for being the birthplace and family home of Oliver Cromwell. What you might not know is that it was also the place where a number of notorious witch trials were held in the 16th and 17th century. And over 3 videos, I'm going to actually tell you the story of some of these cases. I'm doing so not from the museum today, but from here inside Huntingdon Town Hall, just across the road, where we have this amazing and very well preserved 18th century courtroom. Now, although this particular courtroom dates from 1745, there has been a place of justice on this site since at least the 15th century, and it's on this very site where these witch trials were actually held. The first of the cases concerns, well, I suppose one of the most famous witchcraft cases of the 16th century, the alleged Witches of Warboys. The first of the Huntingdon witch trials was probably the most notorious of all the English witchcraft cases in the 16th century, centering on the village of Warboys near Huntingdon. It was a small village, probably less than 1,000 inhabitants at the time. And the case centred or concerned two families, the Throckmortons and the Samuels. The Throckmorton family had only recently arrived, moving into Warboys Manor House on September the 29th, 1589. The family were pious, prestigious, and powerful. Members of the extended family wielded considerable influence both at the Elizabethan court as well as locally in the community. Robert Throckmorton was a close friend with Sir Henry Cromwell, one of the wealthiest commoners in England, one of the most influential men in Huntingdonshire, and of course grandfather of Oliver Cromwell. In contrast, their neighbours, the Samuel family, were at the bottom of the rung of society. They were impoverished, of lowly reputation, and poorly educated. They didn't have the same resources, friends, family, or status that the Throckmortons possessed. However, there was a conflict grew between the two families, just within 6 weeks of the Throckmortons' arrival. First allegations were made in November 1589 by Robert Throckmorton's 9-year-old daughter Jane, when she started suffering from fits. She accused the 76-year-old Alice Samuel of being the cause, and this was echoed by Jane's 4 sisters and eventually 12 household servants who began exhibiting similar symptoms. Jane's fits were described like this.
Sometimes she would sneeze very loud and thick for the space of half an hour together, and evidently as one in a great trance, and sound lay quietly as long. Soon after would begin to swell and heave up her belly, so as none were able to bend her or keep her down. Sometimes they would shake one leg and no other part of her, as if the palsy had been in it. Sometimes the other. Presently she would shake one of her arms and then the other, and soon after her head, as if she had been infected with the running palsy.
Neighbours from the village came to visit the sick Jane and pay their respects to the family. When Alice Samuel visited, the child proclaimed,
"Grandmother, look where the old witch sitteth. Did you ever see one more like a witch than she is? Take off her black-thumbed cap, for I cannot abide to look on her."
Seeking a natural explanation for their child's afflictions, the parents sent her urine to Dr. Barrow of Cambridge, who sent medicine to Jane 3 separate times, thinking that it would heal her. It did not. After the 3rd time, the doctor inquired whether there were any signs of sorcery or witchcraft, that the parents could see at least, and Jane's urine was then sent to a family acquaintance, Master Butler, for examination, and he sent back the same remedies that Dr. Barrow had used. Exactly a month later, on the same day almost to the hour, 2 more of Master Throckmorton's daughters fell sick to the same illness that was afflicting Jane. The Throckmortons were new to the area and still did not feel that anyone had reason for the bewitching. Soon after this, the older daughter, Joan, who was aged 15, fell sick. She was the sickest out of all of the girls. She cried out against Alice Samuel in her illness.
Screech and groan fearfully. Sometimes it would heave up her belly and bounce up her body with such violence that she would not be kept upon her bed.
Now, these symptoms seemed to provide physical evidence for the observers that possession was real. On the 14th of February 1590, for their own safety, the children left Warboys to live with relatives. Elizabeth Throckmorton, aged about 14, resided at the home of her uncle, Gilbert Pickering. Here Elizabeth stated that she often saw a ghostly image of Alice, which appeared
in a white sheet, with a black child sitting on her shoulders, which makes her tremble all over, and she calls on Uncle Master Pickering and others to save her.
Elizabeth believed that the spectral Alice tried to force a demon into her mouth, taking the form of a cat, a mouse, or a toad. As the attempt at recovery of their relatives failed, the children were returned home in March 1590. At this time, Lady Susan Cromwell, the wife of the Samuels landlord and a friend of the Throckmortons, visited to see the children's symptoms for herself. In doing so, she took aside Alice Samuel, castigating her for causing these enchantments. An argument naturally ensued in which Lady Cromwell grabbed a pair of scissors and cut off a lock of hair off Alice, which she then gave to Mrs. Throckmorton to burn, a folk remedy that was believed to awaken a witch's power. Mrs. Samuel, feeling insulted, said, "Madam, why do you use me thus? I never did you any harm, as yet." That very night, Lady Cromwell had nightmares about Alice Samuel. She fell and died in July 1592, and after her death the children accused Alice Samuel of causing it. Those present at the altercation remembered Alice's ominous words, "as yet." The murder of Lady Cromwell eventually legitimised the executions of the Samuels of the Witchcraft Act of 1563, allowed capital punishment of witches if they caused death. Now, but in the meantime, throughout the next 2 years, the children remained afflicted and continued to accuse Alice Samuels, who denied it, followed by the adult Throckmortons imploring her to confess. By the autumn of 1592, the children claimed to have seen invisible items, such as a gown or ring floating in the air. The ringing of church bells caused violent fits. Around Halloween, supposed demons now began to speak through the girls.
Towards All Hallows Tide, the spirits grew very familiar with the children, and would talk with them for half an hour together about the manners of fits they should have, and concerning Mother Samuel. The spirits said many times that they would bring her to shame in the end.
During November, the girls claimed that their demons
Waxed weary of Mother Samuel, and that how ere long they will bring the dame either to confession or confusion.
The girls then seemed to have decided that they would only be well if Alice Samuel, the alleged witch, actually took up residence with them, telling her that
They shall not be well in any place except in her house, or she be brought to continue with them, and besides that, they shall have more troublesome fits than ever they had.
through a combination of pleading, bribery, and intimidation, Robert Throckmorton managed to persuade John Samuel to let his wife lodge with the Throckmortons. Now, even when this happened, the girls continued to claim their ailments and fits. Now, whether all this was a desire for attention on the part of the girls is unclear. It would seem very likely under looking at it with modern eyes. And it may be that their parents suspected this, and that's why they took 3 years before attempting to prosecute the alleged witch. However, during her time at the Throckmortons, and under pressure from Robert Throckmorton, Alice could predict when the fits would occur. With children present, she once said that
One of them shall have 3 fits such, and such for the manner, and other shall have 2 in like sort, and the third shall have none, but be very well all day.
children suffered accordingly. Alice appeared even guiltier. Under the strain of all of this, it was hardly surprising that she eventually broke down and confessed on December the 24th, 1592 at the Throckmortons, and again at church the following day. Upon hearing this, her husband and daughter forced her to retract her confession. This withdrawal angered and embarrassed the Throckmortons, who took the Samuels to court. All 3 Samuels naturally became suspects at this point, which corresponded to the contemporary common belief that witchcraft often ran in families. On April 4th, 1593, the trial took place at Huntingdon. At least 500 people viewed the proceedings and the afflictions. The children vividly continued their fits until each Samuel stated, with a slight variation,
As I am a witch, and did consent to the death of the Lady Cromwell, so I charge the devil to suffer Mistress Jane to come out of her fits at this present.
Although John Samuel refused at first to affirm this, Judge Fenner threatened him with immediate execution, Agnes Samuel, the daughter, bravely accepted her fate, and upon hearing the Samuel's oath, the children immediately became well, allegedly. With their admission of guilt, Judge Fenner ordered them to be hanged on April the 6th, the sentence of which was carried out on Mill Common in Huntingdon. After the execution, the local jailer examined the corpses of the 3 alleged witches.
Found upon the body of the old woman Alice Samuel a little lump of flesh, in a manner sticking out as if it had been a teat, to the length of half an inch, which both he and his wife perceiving, at the first sight thereof, meant not to disclose, because it was adjoining so secret a place, which was not decent to be seen. Yet at the end, not willing to conceal so strange a matter, and decently covering that privy place with a little above which it grew, they made open a show thereof unto divers that stood by.
This was taken to be a witch's mark, a teat by which the devil or his familiars could suckle at the witch. More likely, of course, it was a mole or some similar skin condition. That didn't, of course, get in the way of these witchcraft beliefs. I hope you found that interesting. Please do look out over the next couple of days, because we'll be doing other videos. Next, we'll be moving forward 100 years to what happened when witches were prosecuted in Huntingdon under the auspices of the infamous Witchfinder General. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like and follow us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You'll find more details in the contact card at the end. Thank you.